Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition live forum. I'm your host, David Dedakian, a small business owner here in Rhode Island. I own Eat Drink Rhode Island. And today we've got Speaker of the House, Joe Shekarchi, with us. Before I get into that with the speaker here, let me just remind you that the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition can be found on Facebook, Instagram, all the great social medias, and rismallbusiness.org. There we go, on screen there from Ben. Thank you very much for all of that, Ben. And let's get to the speaker. Welcome today, Speaker Joe Shekarchi.
Thank you very much, David. It's a pleasure to be here. It's making my first appearance on the show. I've heard many good things about it. I've been on a couple of the community conversations with the governor and the lieutenant governor since he became governor, and I look forward to talking with you today, answering your questions, and just to give you basically a shout out that I am a small business. I have a small law practice in Warwick, so I feel the pain that many of us are going through right now in this pandemic, and we're doing our best at the State House. We've enacted a lot of good programs, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we go forward through the process. So I'm all yours, and you can answer any questions you'd like. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think that's an excellent point that you made. We've had a lot of different folks on the show in the last few months, but you're our first member of the General Assembly, and as many people out there should know, the Rhode Island General Assembly is a part-time assembly. I say that, I know it's always a job, but
it doesn't feel like a part-time to me. This is my first year, and so they told me it was part-time, but it's not. It's full-time. It's been a challenging year on many fronts, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure the role of Speaker is definitely a full-time role there. But as you said, you are a small business owner. Many of the members of the General Assembly are small business owners. So I appreciate your pointing that out because I think that's very important. Let's dive right in because there's a lot going on. There's always a lot going on. I was going to say it's not like it's any different. It just happens that right now there's this sort of set and things going on, and another time of year there'll be something else going on. But obviously the first thing that all our members are very curious about, it's the number one thing that comes up in all our conversations in the coalition, is the ARPA funds and what's going on there. As we've seen in the last few weeks, the governor has come out with his idea for 10% of the funds, issued the budget amendment last week for you and the General Assembly to take a look at. What can you give us an update? What's the latest?
I can actually announce something on your show that's not public right now, so you guys will have it. But we are going to be having House committee hearings on the governor's proposed budget amendment. So, it's called the supplement budget, and every governor submits one. This is a little bit earlier, but I understand the need for it, and we're going to start hearings on Wednesday of this week. Actually,
fantastic.
So, but there'll be a series of meetings, and I will just tell you, as I've told everybody, for every $1 of the money that we have, I have $10 in asks, and I like the governor and I like what he has proposed, but there are a lot of other organizations who also want that money. So I'm all about the process. I want it to be very transparent. I want it to be fair to everybody, and I don't want anyone to jump the queue, so to speak. No one is more deserving of it than others are. So we need to go through a certain process, and that process has to be transparent, fair, and open to everybody. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a vitally important point. I think many of our members understand that because, outside of our small businesses, we all have our own interests as well. And obviously we're focused on small business here on this show and in the coalition.
I understand that. Like I said, when I said to you earlier, I am a small business. I have a small business. I have people who work for me. I have a payroll to make. I have rent to pay. I have utilities, keep electricity running. And I had a devastating fire in my law office earlier in the spring. And I had to buy all new office equipment. I mean, I know what everybody's going through, and I know how difficult it is to get, labor to help. I understand that. But we have, just give you some examples of the other organizations that have asked for money. I've had URI come in and ask for $250 million. And higher education is important. They want to build new construction buildings. I've had the road pavers come in and want $200 million to pave roads in Rhode Island. I've had the nursing home owners come in and want $200 million to help with their short staff issues. I've had the child care providers. I don't know if you read that in the newspaper, not yesterday, but $250 million to basically end homelessness in Rhode Island by building a campus at their current place right now. All valid ideas, all very good, all very, very important, and they all have important constituencies behind them, and they all have a great need. And I get that, and I understand that. And I want to help small business. I really do. We've enacted a lot of stuff in the General Assembly this past session to help small business. We have first in the nation law that's a model regarding unemployment compensation. I remember the governor and Matt Weldon coming to us and said, we need this, Joe. We need this before Memorial Day weekend. So we allowed people to still collect unemployment and the enhanced unemployment and go back to work. We hope that helped. We've enacted some stuff that allows exemptions from zonings for small businesses to serve customers outside, have alcohol to go. We've done as many things as we can do that, and we're going to continue to do that. We have to have an accounting. I want to point out to you that in last December, we passed a $13 billion budget. And in that $13 billion budget, there were no broad-based tax increases. In March, the General Assembly authorized and the voters of Rhode Island passed $400 million in bonds. To the best of my knowledge, not any of it has been spent yet. In July of this year, we spent another $13 billion as well in enacting a budget. So there's a lot of money. That doesn't include any of the federal money, PPP or enhanced unemployment. It also doesn't include the city and town money. I know the city of Providence has their own ARPA money. They have $550 million, of which they already received about $250 million in money already in the cities and towns that have to be spent. So we have to have an accounting for that and to make sure. I will tell you that I think there's a lot of leeway in the current budget, and I'm working with the governor. I have a great relationship with him. We get along well. We go to the same barber. That's a whole other story I'm sure we'll get into later in the story. And actually, it was because of the governor that I have my now current barber. So
well, that's great.
And she does an excellent job, by the way. Mm-hmm. But,
Jen will be joining us in a little bit.
I'm sure she will. I'm sure she will. There's no doubt in my mind. But so it's about the process. I don't want to debate the need because I know there's a need. Right. I just want it to be fair process. I don't want anyone to ever say, oh, Speaker, you gave the money to this pet project or that pet project or to this one. I want it to be very open and transparent. And I want every Rhode Islander, whether they're on the governor's list of 100 million or not, and most people are not, to have a chance to come forward and make their own case for their funds. I had the free clinic. Stephanie Chafee called me over the weekend. They do tremendous work for the people who can't afford health care. She asked for millions of dollars in money to be placed. I've had Nancy Benoit from Head Start up in Woonsocket ask for money. I've had John Duffy from the Boys and Girls Club in Rhode Island and their lobbyists from Newport and Cumberland also ask me for money. And I say to them, they're all going to get an opportunity to make their case. I never want anybody to say that no one listened to them, no one considered their request, because I want everybody's request to be considered.
Well, that is certainly great to hear. I think the fascinating thing about that list that you just gave, and it's a long one, is that most of those entities or sectors in some way impact small business. I mean, it's hugely important to small business owners to have good childcare, because we've seen a lot of small business owners had to stop running their businesses over the last year and a half when they didn't have that access. You mentioned the roads. People don't think of that as small business, but definitely infrastructure affects small business. I mean, if I can't get to your place of business on a well-paved road with sidewalks and all that, that's a problem. So I think it's fantastic for you to mention all those things, because we're certainly not hoping that some get over others, but obviously, like you said, $10 of asks for every $1 of actual money.
That may be an exaggeration on the low side. I
bet you it's more, right?
And there's more as we're going to announce later today that we're having hearings. As we have hearings, there'll be more people coming asking for money, as they should. And I don't begrudge anybody for doing that.
No, of course not. Yeah, no, I don't begrudge anyone for ever asking.
I know that some of the restaurants want, gift cards to be placed out. I know the travel industry wants a big grant. I know the hospitality industry, the hotels. I mean, they're all asking and they're all hurting. And I get it. We have this money. I'm looking to invest it. I want to see some long-term sustainability, see what we can do. That would benefit the U.S. Congress has given us 5 years. We have until 2025 to spend the money. So I want to take our time. I don't want to spend it all in one day or 1 month or 1 year. So I want to reserve some see what the future holds. Hopefully we don't have any more COVID problems, but you never know. We don't know which variant's coming up from where and what the devastating impacts are, and whether these vaccines that we all have are going to be enough to protect us from new variants or not, whether it's a booster shot or not. You know, I get all that. And the other part of, small business, I hear about the mandates. There's a segment of our society. I mean, I've been vaccinated twice, and I just got the flu shot last week. But I know there's a segment of the society don't want the vaccine. And, I can sympathize, understand that, but it's a communicable disease. It's not just your body, your choice. It's your choices affect what other people's health are. So we have to balance all of that. And I think the governor, by and large, has done a very good job doing that. We have a very high vaccination rate, and that's a credit to him and Dr. Alexander Scott in the job they've done. And hopefully, the schools are open. And, as of right now, and I'll say this as of today, we plan on holding session at the State House in January. We're not going to go remote. And right now we're having redistricting hearings throughout the state, and none of it's remote. I have 4 or 5 active study commissions going on in the General Assembly, from shoreline access to coastal resources to a whole land use, low, moderate housing issues. All of those meetings are being conducted at the State House and open to the public. So that's the good news. Now, you have to wear a mask at the State House, whether you're vaccinated or not, but that's a small price to pay to have in-person meetings. And as long as you're socially distant and the windows are open, there's plenty of ventilation, you can take your mask off.
Do you see a need for, speaking of the State House, and I know the age of the building and just the nature of it, improvements there with some of these funds? Is that a possibility? So there's more opportunity for in-person meetings?
It's possible. The State House, believe it or not, is not controlled by the General Assembly. It may sound strange, but it's controlled by the executive branch called DCAMP, the Office of the Department of Administration. We have always had a problem in the State House with ventilation, whether it's heating or air conditioning. I know the Senate President and I have talked about it, but we will have that conversation. I'd love for it to be used in a way that preserves the historic value in the beautification of the State House, if it can be done. But that's not a decision that I will make. That's something I'll make with the governor and the Senate President together.
It's good to know. Speaking of those meetings, this is a bigger question. Again, it may not just be your realm to address, but the virtual meetings that we're capable over the last year and a half, we've proved that the technology works. We've proved that people can watch these meetings live and see what's going on. But as someone who has called in and testified many times myself, that calling in feature was a huge advantage. Is that something that we're going to be able to see a return to as time goes on?
It's possible. In the House, we passed a bill that unfortunately is still pending in the Senate. Didn't pass the Senate yet, but it may not. That's up to the Senate. But that would allow remote hearings, whether it's a city and town hearing, a liquor license hearing, a zoning board, a council meeting, to continue in some fashion. So I don't know what the future will hold on that. It's possible. Okay.
Can you tell our members who's on the committee that'll be meeting this week, and or if you have, I don't know if you don't have the list in front of you.
No, it's very simple. You can go on the website. It's the House Finance Committee.
Great.
The House Finance Committee, where all budget articles and supplement budget articles go. And this process will be no different than we follow every single year on every single appropriation. It's not anything special. The law is very clear. We're supposed to exercise our authority in that way, and we will.
Great. While we're still on the topic of the ARPA funds, last question on that. Have you had a chance to look at the document that the governor's office released about the 2030 plan? What do you think? What do you think of that and going forward for the next 10 years?
It's a very long document. It's 50 some odd pages. Yes, I did have a chance to glance at it, and I also read the news articles about it. I actually was traveling last week, so I didn't have it with me until when I got back this past weekend. So I haven't done a deep dive in it, but he's touched all the right areas. I mean, those areas are certainly worthy of consideration. They're in need of it. I think the 2030 plan is nothing new. Every governor does that when they get in office, and I think it's required by statute to do that as well. So I think that's important, but that's always what I like to say. These plans are living and breathing, and they always change. If you said to me 2 years ago, we're going to have COVID, I would say, what is COVID? So we just don't know. I mean, it's good to plan. I'm all about planning. I think it's important we do that, but we also have to be cognizant that our plans have to be fluid. Things are changing rapidly. In this conference I went to, which was in Ireland, I had the pleasure of introducing a futurist. It's a woman who advises governments and corporations on where marketing trends are, where we're going in the future. And I actually sat through, it was a very compelling presentation where she said we have to understand that things are not changing any differently than they ever changed in the past. There's always been change. She's gone back 50, 60, 70, 80 years and looked at change. But what's happening now today is different, is the pace of it, how fast we're changing. If you ask where you were 10 years ago in terms of cell phone usage and internet, you would not be the same as we are now. Who knows what the next 5 years are? And we're raising a whole generation of people who want instant everything on your phone, whatever that is, whether it's a game, whether it's news, whether it's a stock quote, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a text, whether it's Facebook or whatever it is, people want instant. And that has its pluses and its minuses. And it's the same thing when you talk about the governor's plans. I'm sure there's some great ideas and that and it's good to have and it's good to plan, but we don't know what kind of weather events we're going to have. We don't know what kind of, you said the word pandemic 20 years ago, 30 years ago, no one would even blink an eyelash. You say the word pandemic now, we don't know. It's scary. We lost a lot of people. We lost a lot of Rhode Islanders who passed away. And there could be another pandemic, have nothing to do with COVID. Could be a different SARS or a different type of pandemic that'll affect all of business. We all have to learn from COVID. We have to prepare better. We have to prepare cushions in our small businesses. And we have to be prepared to weather another COVID-like incident, whatever that'll be. We don't know. Other parts of the country, they're having power grid shortages right now. We're lucky in many ways here in the Northeast, and sometimes we don't realize. I like to say in Rhode Island, we're our own worst critics, our own best critics, or worst critics, depending on your point of view.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. It's a very good point. We certainly don't have. I mean, we will have some climate issues down the road with the coast and everything, but we don't have any of the issues.
You mentioned climate. I'll just say this, Dave, and then we can open it up. But it was very disheartening. We passed the Act on Climate this year. And I don't mind having a policy debate on anybody or anything on any issue. That's democracy. That's what we're here about. That's what we're for. But when you stop making up blatant falsehoods, if you pass this act, everybody's you have to get all new refrigerators, or you're going to have to sell your car and go out and buy a Tesla. I mean, the amount of scare tactics that goes into something, and you wonder why people don't take a lot of these issues seriously. This whole narrative, it's like there's a fake election and it was false stuff and all these things. It doesn't agree. We need to face reality, deal with it, and move on. Whatever the issue is, whether it's, small business, things that affect business or big business or our government or our health or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The misinformation system right now is immense.
It's on overdrive, and you can't have an honest debate with people. That's why I like this forum. I like this opportunity to talk to you directly, answer your questions.
Right. Yeah, no, one-on-one. I think people are more honest with each other as well when they're talking one-on-one like this. I mean, it's just the nature of that type of conversation. But I had Congressman Langeman and Cicilline on in the past couple months, and obviously we talked about Facebook and misinformation and cybersecurity and things of that nature. And as you said, planning is very important, but you can't see what's going to happen, tomorrow in some cases with some of this technology. So it's vital to be able to be flexible and to adjust for things like that. And again, there's small business issues. I don't really love Facebook most days, but as a small business owner, it's something I have to use very, very much. Instagram.
You have to post. You have to post. Eat, Drink, Rhode Island has to be on there. You have to have a web page. You have to have comments. You have to post. You have to be relevant. You have to stay in people's feed. Yep. And you need to do that, because if you're not doing that, David, guess what? Your competitors are. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, so let's dive into some of the issues, some of the things that our members have talked about. One that is a lot of members talked about it. We don't necessarily think of it as small business, but it definitely is. It's definitely small business. It's also agriculture, which I find fascinating. Where are we with cannabis? What's the thoughts here? What's going on?
Well, as you know, we have legalized the medical use of marijuana in Rhode Island for many years. And in the last couple of years, the General Assembly has expanded that, make it easier for people who have a legitimate medical need to get it. Unfortunately, like everything else in life, there's probably some abuse in that system. There are people, you can go online right now, or they tell me there's a doctor in Seekonk for $60. You type in some information, he'll mail you a prescription for cannabis, and you're off to the races, and you can buy as much as you want, as long as you want. I don't know. I'm not a user of it. I don't begrudge anybody who does. But the reality is that we're getting there in terms of legalization. I assume you say cannabis. You're talking about the recreational use of cannabis.
Yeah.
I have been meeting all summer long with the Senate and the House. Regarding the differences in the many different versions of legalization of marijuana. There's two issues going on right now. One, there's a lottery for the expanded uses of the Compassion Center. That is being held up because there's a protester to that. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with that protest. Separate apart from that, which is in my bailiwick, is whether the General Assembly will put a piece of legislation on the floor in January or February to address the legalization of marijuana. At the present time, we are very close. We've made great progress in coming to a general agreement with the Senate and the governor's office. There's still a sticking point, and I can say this, it's not a secret, about the ultimately regulatory agency who's going to regulate cannabis. Once we can resolve that, and it will be resolved, once we can resolve that issue, then at the end of the day, we'll put something together that will have public hearings, public input before the respective committees in the House and the Senate, and then it will be voted on and be sent to the governor, and the governor can sign it or let it become law without signature, or he could veto it. So that will probably happen. My guess would be the first quarter, maybe the second quarter, but probably the first quarter of 2022 right now. But it's still being actively worked on. As a matter of fact, while I was away last week, they had a meeting without me, and I expect to have a meeting next week as well. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to hear. I guess, yeah. I mean, you know, you drive down 95 and you see the billboards, or I didn't know the story about the doctor in Seacon, but clearly it's big business that's leaving the state again. Yeah,
but the reality is, I will be honest with you, everywhere you look at this, it's not a big moneymaker for the state. Everyone thinks that the moment we legalize it, there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue for the state of Rhode Island. That's simply not the case. If you look at all the factual impacts in other states, you know, we could see up to $10 million, $20 million, which is very good, but it's not hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. And that will take over a period of years to get up to that level of $10 or $20 million because we have to pay for all the infrastructure and all the regulation of it. The reality is that it's a moneymaker for the people who are making it and the people who are selling it. And I understand that, and that's nothing wrong with that. This is America. We're still a capitalist country, and people have a profit. And we want to make sure that there's a social equity component that people have a chance to. We want to make sure that there's an opportunity for co-ops to also participate, which are a group of individuals, not necessarily a big company. So those issues are on the table. Those issues are in something we can all agree on. It's just the details, the devil's in the details, so we'll get there. But the bigger issue is the regulation. Who's going to regulate it? Is it going to be the current DBR? Is it going to be some other entities, or is it going to be a combination thereof?
Right. And we've had Liz Tanner on here in the past. We'll have Liz back again. I think she's done a great job with DBR.
Excellent.
Very supportive of small business.
Liz is a very, very talented director. I know her fairly well, and I worked with her on that. You talked about it earlier on the remote meetings. We worked very hard. I worked with her before I was speaker on blockchain technology bills, way ahead of our time 2 or 3 years ago. I've worked with her. She's a very talented person. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I worked with her on liquor, and let's talk about that for a minute. I think we've seen some of the changes in the liquor laws for the pandemic have been very beneficial to small business, especially to restaurants. And I know it's been extended through the end of this year. And then, it goes back to, not being available from restaurants after the first, and the session doesn't start till after the first. So do you think that's something, again, we could see more progress on as time goes on? Because it has been a very big boon for a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, I will tell you, I don't think it expires on the first. I think it's in March. So,
Oh. I know zoning is March 31st. I thought liquor was December 31st.
No, I think liquor as well, but I think we would certainly entertain that. I mean, Dale Bencherini from the Hospitality Association comes up. The liquor distributors, the liquor stores, owners, they all have strong lobbies,
right?
And they all support some kind of a concept. I think we can look back at what we've done over the last year and a half, and we could probably work on that some more. I think it's been beneficial to.
It has.
For your organizations, such as small restaurant owners. And there's no reason not to continue. We haven't seen any abuse in it. We haven't seen any great spike in drunk driving or any other issues that people somehow or fearful of happening. So I think it's very strong likelihood that would survive or continue in some fashion.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. I've talked to not a lot of police departments around the state, but I've spoken with Providence several times, and there's been no increase in any problem there related to liquor. There's other issues that we've discussed on the show previously with Mayor Lorza, but liquor has not been an issue. But speaking of Providence, why don't we bring Jen in? I know Jen has some questions she wanted to ask you specific to Providence, which tends to cover the whole state sometimes. As we alluded to earlier, Jen is one of the board members of the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition, but is the owner of Executive Cuts in Providence, and does your hair as well as the governor's.
She's the barber to the stars, or the stylist to the stars.
There you go, Jen. How are you?
Hi guys, thank you so much for giving me a powerful voice on defending our small businesses. As we discussed on Saturday while I was doing your hair, the City of Providence dropped their grant program Friday, and my phone hasn't stopped. They have 6 stipulations to apply. It's called City of Providence COVID-19 Small Business Grant Program. I personally don't feel this is for small businesses. I explained to you. So they have a line. It says, have received a city tangible tax bill in the range of $558 minimum to $55,800. You being a small businessman understand that this is absurd. Since I was with you on Saturday, I have spoken to Secretary Pryor, and he has had me reach out to Keith Stokes, the Providence Economic Development Director. And I'm also waiting to hear from Councilman Igliozzi on this subject, just to explain to them that this is not small business friendly grant. For you to have a small business that has a tangible tax bill of minimum $558, that's going to omit all the small businesses or the micro businesses. It is obscenely high. I myself don't qualify. Many of the businesses that I help receive the Restore RI grant don't qualify. So just getting this opinion, this voice to the right people that have the power to change this grant, even though it was just released, is what the coalition is all about. I feel so bad when small businesses, are reliant on, okay, this next round of municipalities grant coming out, because you guys did do the Restore RI. We did receive $5,000 from that last one. And this is, I don't want to say only a $2,500 grant, but this is a less than 50% grant. And you're asking for more stipulations than it was for us to receive the Restore RI for $5,000. Some people receive $10,000. So Joe, just your opinion on that one stipulation that I'm asking for the City of Providence to.
So you make a very good point. This criteria that they chose, and I don't know why this was chosen as a metrics as to why you are eligible or not eligible, would omit a lot of people, and that's not right. I did a little bit of research since I did speak to you on Saturday, and what I did find out was that Council President Igliozzi, as well as Joanne Ryan, I think they were both the authors of this proposal, or at least the impetus behind it, both said that they would take a look at it and make changes as necessary. So I think that you and your organization need to contact them and to be vocal. I don't know the metrics. I will tell you that if $550 in a tangible tax, which means that your taxes, your inventory taxes are very high, and especially right now, nobody had. First of all, you can't get inventory because there's a supply chain problem. But if you have inventory, you're a restaurant, David, you're selling your inventory fast because there's spoilage. Right. And you don't have a lot. And Jen, other than scissors and clippers, you don't have a lot of inventory also. So this metrics is kind of unfair, and also I don't think really addresses the people who need it. It's probably the people who have the lower, I would say almost $550 or less should be qualified, not $550 or more. But that's my opinion. What I will tell you this, it's not a state program, that this is a city program, and the city decides how to spend the money. When we talked about earlier that the cities and towns in Rhode Island getting $550 million, of which they received half of that already, they have to follow. They're accountable to themselves. They're accountable to the government. None of that money was a pass through. None of that money came to the state per se. That was money that the federal government distributed right to cities and towns.
Right.
Yeah, if a business falls within that metric, $2,500 grant isn't going to do anything for them.
I mean, that's the other painful thing about it is $2,500. You know, if you're a small business, and not that it's not useful, it's every penny is useful, but it's not a lot.
No, it's $2,500, and that's wonderful and it's good, but it's not going to carry you a long way. Right. But it's much needed relief, and if that's what you really want to do, you want to help the small businesses in the city of Providence, you need to rethink that formula.
You need to get it out, and that's the bottom line. You need to get it out into their hands and let them use it.
Yeah, nobody today, right now, in this current post-COVID and current COVID economy, is carrying a lot of inventory because it's very difficult to get the inventory. And if you're in any kind of a food business where there's a spoilage, you're not carrying a lot and you can't get a lot.
Yeah, no, it's just supply chain is a mess. I mean, I don't know what it's like for the barbershop, Jen, but working with wine from around not even around the world, even around the country, getting it here sometimes is difficult. The trucking and all that. And that's just one small example. I'm sure all my friends in retail, I've seen them posting pictures the last month. They're stockpiling as much as they possibly can for the holidays because it's just hard to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
even the toys. I feel bad for the children. A lot of the stores can't have the toy. They're not having their toys. If you're sending a gift for Christmas, you better buy it now. And send it because you don't know what's going to happen after Thanksgiving and Black Friday.
No, it's very true. I saw a story this morning, which I didn't think about until I read the story. The shipping containers are having problems getting around the world, and some of the toy manufacturers are shifting their production to more squishable, plushable toys that they can jam into the containers in mass quantities over toys that are in boxes that are hard to ship. It's a fascinating. Again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's, if you said 2 years ago this was going to happen, no one knew.
No one knew that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even when I opened my business 17 years ago, I didn't have a tax bill that high when all my equipment was brand new. So it's absurd to expect that from.
Jen, you make a very good point about what I would say the word depreciation. Yeah, depreciation of the value. It goes down every year. So even if you had that inventory amount that the city said at one point, you certainly don't have it now because it's all depreciated. It's a fast depreciation. It's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Well, thank you, Joe, for backing me up on that. And hopefully we can get that change to make some good changes for the businesses in the city of Providence.
Absolutely. I hope so. Not only the business of Providence, but business around Rhode Island, Jen. What we can say is, I know that you guys are Providence centric, but we have to look at the whole state. We have to make sure that we take care of Warwick, we take care of Cranston, Woonsocket, Pawtucket, all 39 cities and towns. No one should be prioritized over the other. We have to treat everybody fairly.
Absolutely true. No, we brought Jen on. She is a business owner in Providence, but yeah.
For any of our other coalition members in other cities, if their grants come out and it has stipulations like that we need to advocate for you, please bring it to our attention. As they, my business being in Providence, obviously that's what I'm focused on. But if there are other grants out there that we need help with advocating for, that's what we're here for, please.
Well said, Jen. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about that for a second. There, the 39 cities and towns. I know this is a much bigger, broader question I'm about to ask you, but as we have this conversation, and we deal with things like zoning and things that are very specific to these individual cities and towns, education, things of that nature. How do you see it working sometimes? It's very difficult. We have a coalition member who's got a very successful business in North Kingstown, wanted to expand it to Warwick, is in the process of doing so, but it's been a real headache for him to just adjust some of the things that he has had to adjust between those two cities, which are not that far apart. How do you see that working and developing for in this age where not only is the distance from Warwick to Westerly reduced to the speed of light, the distance from Warwick to Warsaw is reduced to the speed of light. I mean, what do you see there?
I understand. In my private practice as a small business owner, a small law firm, I deal with people who have all kinds of permitting issues, and it's kind of goes back to, I guess, our colonialism. All politics is local, all zoning is local.
Yeah.
Even within, let's use the city of Warwick because that's where I'm from. Even within the city, there's always issues with people who don't want change. It's always been empty and it should stay empty. Well, it's not yours and it's privately owned and people are paying taxes on it. They have a right to develop their land or within the use of what zoning's allowed. And unfortunately, you would never be able to get like a statewide zoning approval. If we could solve the affordable housing crisis like that. And we could talk about that. That's a whole nother topic and discussion. We have a couple of group study commissions going on right now about what's the best way to address these issues. But what I will tell you, in my experience, it comes down to all decisions like this are local, whether we're talking about permitting for a house or permitting for a business of any kind. We have liquor control boards, we have police departments, police stations, Board of Licensing in Providence, Board of Public Safety in Warwick, different right. Membership, different controls, different limits, different requirements, because people locally want to have control over the number of liquor licenses, the location of them, and they don't want they want the people who make these decisions to be connected. And most of the time there are residency requirements. So if you sit on a board or zoning board or a licensing board, that you live in the community, because the people want you to know that your decisions will affect them. So if you're in Providence, David, how do you make a decision for North Kingstown, which you think is good for business, but the people in North Kingstown don't think it's good for them? They want to have the local control over a lot of this stuff, and that slows down the process. Yeah. What I try to explain to all my clients, and I try to explain to them all, is that it's worth the effort. It's worth the time. It's frustrating. I'm working with a small business owner in Providence right now, who wants to bring her business, very successful business, to Warwick, and it's been a challenge. And she's worked through COVID and getting the fire permits and the building permits and the historical sign-offs and everything else. These are boards that sometimes meet once a month, and they're difficult, but it's worth it. I keep telling her name's Kim. I said, Kim, stay with it. When you open up, you can talk about this. It's a great conversation point, but you'll a lot of success. And that's what I would tell your listeners and your small business owners. Don't give up because the process is hard or difficult or lengthy. Plan on it. You are a successful business because you want to expand. You get it. It's not going to be easy to expand it. Once you get it, it's a barrier to possibly competition. But once you get it, then you really achieve something that has value, and you just work hard and you'll be successful. Mm-hmm.
No, it's an excellent point. I think, that goes back to a lot of the, times people say, well, how do I change these things? Well, get involved, get active.
Absolutely. I say that all the time. That's why I announced that we have hearings. I want every one of your members and everyone else who's listening or hears this show to voice their concerns either through their state representative or in person or letter or an email or whatever the mode of communication is best suited for you. But the more you can communicate, the better we do at the General Assembly.
No, that's an excellent point. Yeah, and I know the business you're talking about, Kim's business there. So, thank you. Good luck with that. I'm sure that'll be open soon. And then I think that's not far from your office, right? You'll be able to enjoy.
I'll be there regularly. I promise you that. It's a good restaurant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should be. It should be really great. So thank you for that and bringing that one up. I think we touched on a lot of topics here. Is there anything you want to close with? Anything small business for our small business members out there that you want to say?
This is what I tell. I address a lot of organizations. I've only been speaker it's my first term. I've only been speaker for 10 months. And I've gone to the chambers and the Rotaries and lots of other live forums like this. What I tell everybody is just what you said about 2 minutes ago, David, is you need to be involved. You need to be involved in the electoral process and in the legislative process. If you sit back and complain, you will never get anything accomplished. But if you I'll ask this rhetorical question to all your members. How many of them know who their state representative is? And more importantly, how many of them do their representatives know who they are? And you can contact them and you can call them and you can voice your concerns. And every once in a while, it's nice to say thank you that, I saw your vote on minimum wage. I saw your vote on nursing home staffing. I saw your vote on whatever the issue is, the act on climate, and I appreciate it. And it's good for my business. It's good for the economy. I saw your assistance you did on unemployment. What I will tell you here at the General Assembly, we hear, what you're saying. We hear the needs. We know what the issues are with small business. We're concerned about it. All meetings are going to be streamed, regardless if you can participate or not. You can watch and you can contact people later. And what I will tell you also is that we have enacted a lot of stuff that doesn't get headlines. We made some changes to unemployment compensation to make it easier for small business. We adjusted the time frame when to pay your taxes interest free. We've done lots of things that don't get a big headline in the newspaper or the local media because they're not like scandalous or sexy enough. But we hear you, and it's about hard work. And I will tell you, I'm very proud of what we did in the General Assembly this year. It was the most productive session since I've been there in the last 9 years. And I look forward to another great year this year. I've got a great leadership team. We're working hard. We're collaborative. We try to incorporate ideas from everyone, and that includes the public. So please step up, come forward, and your ideas will be considered. You will be heard.
Well, thank you for that. That's, I think you made an excellent point as it's very easy, especially nowadays, to get in touch with your representatives or your senators. And in fact, I tell people all the time on the show, if you don't know who they are, sos.ri.gov. It's very simple. You type in your home address and it tells you all your representatives.
And communicate with them. Be involved with them. Mm-hmm.
But also, I like what you said. As someone who represents other businesses, and this is much different than being a General Assembly member by all means, but I can relate because I get more complaints than thank yous, and that's just the nature of the beast. You want people to come to you and tell you what the problem is so you can fix it. But a thank you would be nice every now and then. I'm sure you would appreciate that.
I was at the Rhode Island Association for Realtors last week, and I told the same thing. I said, all of you don't realize how powerful you can become because you all have realtors office throughout the state. And if each one of you reached out to your representative and brought them into your business once a month, once a year, once a quarter, and just say, these are the 15 realtors we sell. We live in your district. We sell houses in your district. We help people go into the school system, get to them. So if there's an issue that affects realtors, you can call the realtor and let them know, or call the representative and say, the realtors feel strongly about this or strongly about that. And it's the same thing. You need to be involved. And I know that's hard because you're running your business. And I have this discussion with the accountants, and they never want to get involved because they say you have to, and they never run for office, by the way. That's a whole other story. But they go, half our business is Republican, the other half is Democrat. We don't want to get involved. But yet they're always going to give you an idea. They're always going to tell you what you should be doing. I'm like, well, you need to come up to the State House and talk about it. And nobody wants to do that. It's a hands-off policy. So I get it. And I understand some businesses, want to be neutral, but you can still advocate without being partisan. And you can advocate on issues and not about people, regardless of who the person is, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. I guarantee you that representative, or a progressive or a moderate or a conservative, that representative wants to do what his constituents want. And that's all I can tell you. And is the only way that representative will do what the constituents want is if they have communication, they know and they understand that.
No, absolutely true. I believe that as well. Thank you very much for saying that.
It's a pleasure to come on your show today. It's a pleasure to see Jen and Chris and you, David, and I wish you good success, and keep this forum. It's a great opportunity for you to be an advocate and to voice the concerns of small business. So keep up the good work on your part.
Thank you for saying that, Speaker. I really appreciate it. It was great conversation with you today. I thank you for having the time to do it. So thank you, everyone out there. To Speaker Joe Shekarchi for joining us, and for everyone out there watching us. Just some wrap up. So as we move on to the next show, will be Senator Reed. He's with us on November 2nd, and then after that, we've got 3 mayors coming up: Mayor Lombardi from North Providence, Mayor Policina from Johnston, and Mayor Picozzi from Warwick. So you can get all that here on the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition live forum on the Facebook page. rismallbusiness.org is the website where you can sign up for the coalition. Please join us again, as I said, next time for Senator Reed. Should be a really great conversation. Thank you again for watching.